Hey guys, in today's video I'll be doing another tropical update on Invest 98L. And really ever since this morning, with the newest, 8 a.m. advisory, it has an 80% chance of forming within the next 2 to 5 days. And because of that really high chance of, equal chance between the next 2 to 5 days, well, the NHC has said that the thunderstorm activity is currently located well east and northeast of the low center, but only a small increase in organization or a reformation of the center closer to the thunderstorm activity could result in the formation of a tropical or subtropical cyclone later today or tonight. The low is expected to move northeastward or north-northeastward near or just offshore of the North Carolina Outer Banks later today, and then along the mid-Atlantic coast tonight through Friday night, and then as well as the New England coast going into Friday night and Saturday. So it's generally going to be moving, just up the coast here, right along the coast. In fact, if I show you the 5-day graphical outlook, show you where it could form in the next 5 days, again, you can see it's like right along the coast of the mid-Atlantic, northeast New England coast. So, it looks like it will kind of move more north-northeastward for right now and then curve more northward. And then looks like it could very well just come straight north, go right up through around New York City, very western Long Island, and up through Connecticut. Chances are increasing a lot. Like I figured this would happen, that this system would be just offshore the coast, but come close enough towards a tri-state area where it would come through where I live, in fact. So, where I live, I'm probably, from what it looks like, going to be getting some of the most intense effects from the system. And I gotta say, I wouldn't be surprised by the 2 p.m. advisory if this does potentially become a tropical depression, because I was just looking on Twitter and it was saying, and one of the tweets I was looking at said that apparently another low level center was forming closer towards the thunderstorm activity, and if that kind of tries to take over from where the center is right now, well, 2 p.m. advisory could, the NHC could see that enough to be like, hey, you know what, looks like it's a tropical depression by this point. And then, again, they're saying a potential tropical system by later today or tonight, so maybe the 8 p.m. advisory, we could see Fay being named by then. I really wouldn't be surprised if that's how it went. Maybe it'll be delayed by just a little bit, by an advisory or two, but, I don't think it will be delayed too much longer. I think this will form pretty quickly now into a named tropical system. So, so that's now a look at what the National Hurricane Center is currently showing for this system, Invest 98L. And if we go to satellite imagery, we're on Tropical Tidbits, and we're looking at Invest 98L. You can see it looks like the center is generally right around here, and it looks like a new center is trying to form closer to the thunderstorm activity around over here, I'd say. And you can see the thunderstorm activity around this is really blowing up and has pretty decent thunderstorm activity, and it's starting to now kind of try and wrap itself around a little bit now. So that is a really good sign that we are seeing this the system trying to become an actual tropical system, or at least a tropical depression, maybe even a tropical storm pretty soon as well. So, the system looks very healthy, very good looking right now, and now let's look at the forecast models. I'll show you the GFS, CMC, and European, of course, the 3 main models. And then I'll show you the Icon and NAM 3KM as well. Just to show you what those two are thinking as well, because they're also pretty interesting models showing with what they're showing for this system. So you can see right now the GFS, again, has that low pressure center where I was just showing, right off of towards the southern part of the Outer Banks of North Carolina, and then it'll just start to head more northward and be just offshore. Let's actually zoom in so we can get a better look at this. Let's go to the northeast U.S. actually, in fact. You can see the GFS has 1,005 millibars, 1,004, and coming right up through New Jersey, New York City, Connecticut, Long Island. So this is honestly the kind of track of the system of where it's going up, where it's going through the Northeast and New England areas. It's kind of like what Hurricane Irene did back in 2011. Of course, when it made landfall here, actually the center went right over New York City, and just to the northwest of where I live. At that point, though, it was still a fully tropical system. It was a 60 mile per hour tropical storm. Of course, I don't think this system will get that strong per se, but I think we could see the system be a at least a very weak tropical storm. 40 45 miles per hour. So still very decent rainfall rates for really. Especially southeastern Pennsylvania, Delaware, southern Maryland, much of New Jersey, southern New York State, including New York City, western Long Island, Connecticut, especially coastal southwestern Connecticut, western Connecticut in general, and then up through Massachusetts and Vermont. Actually, let's look at the total accumulated precipitation it's forecasting right now. You can see that's generally the case with what I was saying, especially the bullseye will be for very southern Maryland, all of Delaware, most of New Jersey, excluding the parts towards very near New York City, and then very eastern Pennsylvania up through the Catskills of New York. And that's where they're expecting anywhere from 2 to 6 inches of rainfall. In the darker purples, that's where they're potentially even expecting between 4 to 6 inches of rainfall, so towards really the higher end of that. And then in the blue, it's really getting accumulations between half an inch and 2 inches. So the tri-state area, New York City, around Fort Lee, New Jersey, going up towards southwestern Connecticut and western Long Island, we could be seeing accumulations of between half an inch and 1 inch of rainfall. To be honest, I think this may be just a little bit too little for the tri-state area. I think it could be a little bit more. Though, again, of course, that depends on really exactly where that low pressure center, or the very center of the low pressure, will really go. But I think this could be upped a little bit. I think these areas could even see more towards 1 to 2 inches rather than just half an inch to an inch total. Okay, so that's what the total rainfall is, the GFS forecasting right now for this system. And then the winds, let's bring this back to here. All right, so let's bring this forward. You can see the tropical storm force winds will get really cranked up. We get between, 40 to 46 knots, even towards 46 knots. So, again, we could be seeing, like I was saying, a weak tropical storm, really between 40 and 50 miles per hour, probably more like 45 miles per hour will be its peak, most likely, as it heads north. And, the strongest winds will be for Long Island, the Connecticut, really very central and parts of western Long Island, and then coastal southern Connecticut up through, very southern New York State. So it'll be a very windy event, too, with all this rain coming down for those areas. Let's show you the vorticity that the GFS is showing for this system. You can see the vorticity wraps up pretty nicely. It gets very decent vorticity. It has a lot of very decent spin with it. So, the system does look to really try and get its act together a good bit between now and when it's making landfall up towards the New York City area. All right, so now let's look at the CMC model. And let's look at the precipitation, bring this up, bring this farther out in time. You can see, actually, the CMC is maybe just a tad farther to the east than the GFS, but really, it's just really in the same place, and bringing, of course, the very heaviest rainfall to downtown New York City, all of Long Island, very northeastern New Jersey, around New York City, and southern Connecticut, especially southwestern Connecticut, close to New York City. So that's going to be a very huge rainmaker for these areas. So let's look at what the total accumulated precip that's showing. And you can see bullseye between 2 to 6 inches is, of course, a good bit farther to the east than what the GFS is showing. I think that between the GFS and CMC, it will be kind of like within the middle of what the models are showing. So I think the highest amount of precipitation, the highest amount of rainfall, will be from like from southern Jersey, really like to southern tip of New Jersey, around Cape May, Wildwood, and maybe even southern Delaware, southern Maryland, up through, including New York City, western Long Island, southern New York State, and southwestern Connecticut, and parts of very eastern Pennsylvania, and then up through portions of western Massachusetts and southern Vermont. So I think the CMC is maybe just a slightly better, looks to be slightly more true for the outcome of the total rainfall, to be honest. But I think really the GFS and CMC are very close to what the total rainfall will really be. So really, I think a lot of us here living in New Jersey, Eastern Pennsylvania, Maryland, Delaware, the New York City area, southern Connecticut, especially if you live in these areas, really expect the total rainfall to be something kind of like this with what the CMC is showing. Maybe just a little bit farther to the east, so it's more in the middle of what the GFS and CMC are showing. But really, this really is probably the closest to what the actual outcome will be, I think, for right now for the total rainfall. So I'll show you now what the CMC is showing for the winds, and let's bring this back. This is vorticity. Hold on, I gotta bring the winds actually. Here, winds. Bring this up. You can see the CMC as well is bringing the strongest winds into some of those areas of where the heaviest rainfall will be. So for central, western Long Island up through coastal southern Connecticut, and even for portions of southern New York State into small portions of northeastern Pennsylvania. And this outcome looks very similar to kind of what the GFS is showing, honestly. And also what the CMC is forecasting right now with what the forecasted low pressure center will be around 1,005 millibars. Pretty much exactly the same with what the GFS is showing. Though, surprisingly enough, the CMC is showing it going right up the Hudson River Valley. So, that would be very interesting to see, because that would mean really it's kind of over the water the whole time, not exactly making landfall or being over land really anywhere. So that'll be an interesting outcome. That's probably not going to happen. It'll probably be somewhere around the Hudson River Valley, but most likely on land somewhere. But this is also pretty much very close to what the actual outcome will be that we'll see going into tomorrow and Saturday for southern Connecticut, the New York City, Long Island, the tri-state area of New York City, including the New Jersey area around New York City, central and western Long Island, and southern Connecticut, down through really much of New Jersey, eastern Pennsylvania, Maryland, and Delaware. That's what the CMC is showing for the winds. Now I'll show you what it's showing for the vorticity, and you can see the vorticity. It's showing very strong, decent vorticity with this system, just like with what the GFS is forecasting. It's showing the system getting very wound up, decently wound up to become at least a kind of weaker tropical storm towards like 45 miles per hour sustained, maybe at peak. I honestly think that could actually happen in the end, be its peak, and I think that's the most realistic, highest outcome for this system, for its peak intensity. All right, so that's the CMC model. Now I'll show you the European model. Show you what the European model is showing, because that is also an important model. And then we'll go back to tropical tidbits, and I'll show you what the ICON and NAM3KM models are showing. So let's change this to forecast loop, and I am now going to show you what the European is showing. So there's the system right off of North Carolina, and then it starts to spin, and then going up, it starts heading northward. And you can see the European is still surprisingly keeping it much farther to the east and not really really more making landfall towards the Cape of Massachusetts. I don't think this will be the outcome, really. I think it will be a good bit farther to the west and make landfall much closer towards New York City. Then again, it's still showing a pretty decently heavy rainfall for the New York City, Southern Connecticut, Long Island areas, and then, of course, including Massachusetts and Rhode Island. I'll show you what the winds, it's forecasting the winds to be. Bring this up a bit, and you can see it's showing the winds getting decently strong. You can see 35 to 40 knots. Here it's showing it again between 35 to 40 knots, and I wouldn't be surprised if maybe it even tries to get a little stronger. Look at that, even closer to even closer towards 40 knots. So the European is also really hinting at the fact as well that we could see a weak tropical storm form out of this right before it kind of makes landfall appear towards the New York City area. The southern New England area around New York City. So that's what that is showing. And then I'll show you the total accumulated precipitation. Whoa, no. There we go. Let's only bring it out to there. And I want to zoom in. Here we go. Yeah, perfect. Northeast U.S. and bring that up to around there. Scroll this down, and you can see what the European is forecasting for this highest precipitation. Of course, it shows it much farther to the east than what the GFS and CMC are showing. But it's generally, again, showing, Long Island, southern Connecticut, much of, really all of Rhode Island, a lot of Massachusetts, up through southern Vermont, much of New Hampshire and Maine even. So it's, much farther towards the east, closer to really all of the coastline of New England, to the highest precipitation. Looks like the highest precipitation, though, in fact, is actually towards along the very eastern coastline of Connecticut, getting towards around New London, around 4 to 5 inches of rainfall. So, that's pretty heavy rainfall, honestly. And even getting closer to New York City, it's only forecasting up towards an inch. But I wouldn't be surprised if this is a little bit farther to the west. I think it will be a good bit farther to the west. So I think the New York City area will be almost in the bullseye of the heaviest rain. Honestly, really, if you live in the tri-state area, just be prepared for what could be the strongest effects from the system. Of course, there will also be, on top of this really strong winds and heavy rainfall, there will also be, because of the strong winds, the onshore push and making the ocean a lot more choppy, and you could see a lot of coastal flooding along the coastlines. So, the southern Long Island coastline could see some coastal flooding. New Jersey's coastline could see some flooding. Connecticut's coastline could also see some flooding, as well as coastal Rhode Island, and maybe even some parts towards the Cape of Massachusetts could see some flooding. And of course, could see some flooding along the Maryland and Delaware coastlines as well. But really, I think the highest chance we have for the coastal flooding is really right around the tri-state area. So, that's something to really keep in mind. So now I'll show you the icon. Show you what the icon is showing. So here's the precipitation. You can see the icon is showing really very similar towards what the CMC and GFS are showing. Bringing the heaviest rainfall through New York City, through western and central Long Island, up through southern, and really all of Connecticut is getting the heaviest rainfall through most of Massachusetts and into Vermont. And the low pressure center for this system, it is showing it getting pretty strong, 1,005, 1,004 millibars, 1,003 millibars right as it makes landfall in Long Island, and then in around 1,002 millibars when it makes landfall in eastern Connecticut. I think this will where the low pressure center will be. I think it will be a little bit farther to the west, but not too far off from what the icon is showing even for this. Let's show you what the icon is showing for total rainfall. And yeah, I mean, you can see the New York City area through the Tri-State area through much of Connecticut, most of Long Island, up through portions of central Massachusetts and up through southern Vermont will get the heaviest rainfall between really 1.5 to 3 inches of rainfall. So that's a very decent amounts of rainfall. So honestly, you should watch out for some flooding, potential flooding, with the system, according to the icon model as well, with just the rainfall. And then the winds also, again, showing pretty strong, even potentially tropical storm sustained winds moving onshore towards Long Island coastline, Connecticut coastline, the Cape areas, Rhode Island coastline. So, you know, sure, definitely the chances are really at its peak at this point of showing the potential of, you know, getting a tropical system, named tropical storm, and getting actual good tropical storm effects for these areas for the first time since Hurricane Sandy in 2012. And then finally, I'll show you what the NAM 3CAM model is showing. The NAM model is nuts with this system, honestly. It is really showing it strengthening a lot. Getting down to the, you know, the 995 to 1,000 millibars. So, you know, very strong tropical storm force winds being shown with this, with this system for New Jersey, New York City, Connecticut, Long Island, Delaware, Maryland. I'll show you the total accumulated rainfall for this system, and you can see very decent amounts of rainfall through New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, New York City, Connecticut, Long Island, Eastern Pennsylvania, up through southern New York State. And then, you know, finally, just, you know, the 2020 Atlantic hurricane season, if this system does get a name, which I think it is very likely that it will be named Fay, the 6th named storm of the season. It would make it the record earliest forming F-named storm on record, beating Tropical Storm Franklin, actually, sorry. Franklin was actually a tropical storm in 2005, so it will beat Tropical Storm Franklin of 2005 for record earliest forming F-named system. But yeah, that's really it for today's video, guys. I really hope you enjoyed. Please like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.